everyone, welcome back to Trash It. It's a full house today. We just had to reel in Jude and Antonia.
Yes.
Hello, guys.
Hi, guys. Hello.
Hi.
Silly, I've not called your name. You really wanted to come on, but don't worry, I'll give you a shout out.
Hey,
Hello,
sorry.
Celia.
Hello.
Okay, I'm going to jump into it. I know everybody's been staying at home, keeping well. Hopefully, this virus just fizzles out and we can go back to a normal life. But something interesting happened on Twitter, and it went like wildfire. A friend of the show actually sent this to us. Yinka, hi Yinka, thank you for sending it through, but we've already seen it and we were going to trash it. And I don't know if everyone has seen it about this mom, because we're all at home now. Most people are working from home. Some people are not working. So I understand this mom and her 13-year-old child and her husband. I'm not sure if the father in question is the child's biological father, but anyway, she refers to the man as her husband and the father's child. They've been together playing games, this Fortnite that everyone is into right now.
Yeah.
They'll be locked up in a room 10 hours on end, 6 hours on end playing this game. They will only come out to eat. So she became kind of like, what the hell is going on? And checked her husband and goes, have you been sexually abusing our daughter?
Okay.
Guy goes, what the hell? How dare you accuse me of this? Blah, 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 blah. Got upset, left the property, took the child with him, and they moved to his mom's house. So the question of the day, because Twitter went, there was an argument for and against, like, well, she did the right thing, and people are like, no, you don't check your husband, you don't even assume things like that. Guys, what say you? Now, before you go in, Jude, you've got a 13-year-old daughter, so I will go to you directly. If your missus, and I pray to God she doesn't, but let's use you hypothetically. If your missus should come to you challenging you with such accusation, what would you do? Or is this mom wrong for going that pathway?
That's a very interesting question. I think I will fly off the handle immediately. I think it's normal for every human to do that. Just fly off the handle, because I don't know what on earth she was thinking. Why would she just come up to me and accuse me of such things? I'll fly off the handle immediately. I don't know how I'll react, but definitely I wouldn't just.
So the man's action is justified.
Yes.
Okay, Antonia.
I'll tell you why she went that route. I mean, it's from experience, in a society that we are now in, there's a lot of abuse to children, and not just from outsiders, it's usually from family members, from parents to children, to their own child, their own biological child, from uncles, from aunties. This is just not female children, but male children. If you're a parent that is exposed, you don't have a choice but to feel suspicious to some degree. I would want to know more about this case. I would want to know, why would my husband and our 13-year-old daughter be in a room playing game for X amount of hours? I want to be involved with that game. Is it something that I cannot be? I will be suspicious personally, but I would want to do some investigation. I would need some hard evidence before I react. I would want to involve myself in their game playing. If it's something, oh, mommy, you can't, then I want to know what's going on in that room. I'll go extreme lengths to find out what is going on in there.
Yeah. Celia, what's your take on this?
It's you don't question, and then something was actually happened, and then you start to regret why you didn't ask. And then you ask, and then you find yourself in a situation like this where the man is upset, he's taken the daughter and they've left the house. Now, for me, I think when Antonia said she wanted to know a bit more about the scenario, I think there was a particular day when this man and the daughter were in the room playing this game for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden, the man comes out of the room and the mom was sitting in the living room, and the man gives the woman, his wife, a peck on the cheek or a kiss, and then left to go somewhere. And this was when she actually asked him the question, because she felt that he felt guilty of having just sexually abused their daughter. Now, for me, I don't think I would ever ask that question, because once you ask that question, how do you come back from that? Yeah, because sometimes when you sow a seed, yeah, there's nothing you can do to unsow that seed. Okay, so now that she has asked her husband, potentially the father of the child, that question, he's forever going to remember when you asked the question. So even though, you know, you might have apologized and you might have said, I'm so sorry, I was just trying to protect our daughter, he may forgive you, he may understand, but he'll never forget. And imagine if the daughter also then found out about the question you asked daddy. So again, that's going to be playing on her mind.
Interestingly, the daughter found out. But I'm going to go to you, Jude, before I come to Antonia, because Antonia was going to do some investigation. Jude, someone has accused you of this. And right, wrong, we find out eventually this obviously is not true. How do you come back from this?
I don't think there's a comeback from this one. If I was, I have 3 children. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old boy child and a 5-year-old boy as well. If I was ever accused of that, I don't think there's a comeback. But I haven't said that though. I don't have the whole history of this family. I'm thinking right here that there's already a background story to it, because I don't think any woman would do that just to accuse her husband or partner who's the stepfather of the child. Hey, what's happening there? Through a peg, or maybe he felt guilty. Something must have happened in her life. She must have been abused before. But then again, I expect if my wife was abused when she was young by a relative or so, I believe before we started courting and then go into courting and then marriage, she would have told me one time or the other. So I know, okay, this is there. So if...
Let me stop you there, Jude. If in actual fact this woman was abused and she's told you, would you not give her, would there not be some leeway to say, okay, maybe because she's experienced this while growing up, it's made her more cagey of the men in her life?
That's the point I was coming to. If I already know this story and then she approached me because she's seeing the same pattern that happened to her when she was younger, then I understand that, okay, I get where this is coming from. Then we'll talk about it. Then there's a comeback from that because I already know the situation. But if there's nothing like that, I don't know about that aspect of a childhood, and she just walk up on me and say, hey, what's happening? Have you gone in there to abuse my daughter? Is the child in question our daughter, or am I the stepfather or something? So either way, though, it's a very delicate issue. But if there's a background story to it, there's always going to be a comeback. But if there wasn't,
Antonia, you were going to investigate. What did you think to do?
You see, just following on from what you just mentioned, it's quite interesting because there's always a personal experiences to things like this. Like you said, it could be the woman was abused by her own father. It could be in her work, in the kind of job that she does. She's come across young children being abused by their parents. So for her to react like that, I mean, you get paranoid, especially when you work in that kind of environment and you see how young children in our society today are being abused by the one that they know, by the one that they call dad and the one that they call mom. So let's not take that away. That is impossible for the father or the stepfather to abuse their daughters. It happens. It's there. So that's an issue. That's an issue that needs to be dealt with in our society. Well, I personally, if I begin to suspect that my husband or who I know is doing this, I would see, you know what, there are cameras. I would put a camera. If it comes to putting a camera in that room, since I cannot be in that room, I will be there through the camera. There are things you can buy online.
So let me tell you a story, and then we can factor into this camera. I know of a family where the father, the biological father, was actually abusing his daughter while the wife worked from home downstairs. Okay. So anytime they were upstairs and under this guy, so I'm reading her a bedtime story, he was actually doing God knows what with her upstairs. Now, if a camera was in place, don't you think that's too late? Because he would have invariably done something and you made them be reviewing the camera. So there was people that said maybe the mom got jealous. I personally don't think so. But I'm just thinking, don't you think the camera is too late? Because you would have to be reviewing the footage, and by then things would have
happened. Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why, as parents, everyone has to take some responsibility. If your daughter is spending so much time with your husband, I personally want to be involved. I will learn how to play that game. I want to be there with them in that room. I will create my own activity and bring my husband in, bring my daughter in. I would want to have a personal relationship with my daughter to the extent that if she decides to even have a crush on a guy, I would be one of the first person she would speak to. I will make that transition from a teenage transition as smooth as possible. And that's why us as parents need to take responsibility. So we don't need for it to get to that stage. There are many things that we can do as parents to minimize the risks.
Celia, I will go to you because I can see you're about to come in as well.
Yeah, so I think, as Antonia said, as parents, there's certain things that we can do. Once, with regards to you putting a camera in the room, as soon as you get the intuition that something like that may be happening, yeah, I agree with you. I will put a camera in that room because you want to rule it out, okay? Yeah. Because when you don't investigate and you just accuse, like this woman has done, and there's really nothing happening, then there's an issue. But when you investigate and you have your evidence and you're saying you've been abusing our child, this is the evidence, then there's nothing he can do. So really and truly, you've done the right thing by the child. But however, as you said, Yuri, something may have already happened. I remember I had a friend, we worked together years ago, and she had a daughter. And she said, Celia, whenever I'm going to work and the father was to look after the child, yeah, I would say to him, right, before I leave, I will, if the child is not going into child minority, I will make sure that I put a diaper on the child, right? And I will say to the dad, I have changed her. The nanny, who is a female, right, will be here in 2 hours, right? So within that 2 hours, you don't need to do anything with her. All you need to do is just feed her. Do you understand? So don't change her. And then she also said sometimes if she's popping out to the shop, maybe for an hour or two, she would do the same thing. She would put the diaper on the child and she marks where she ends the diaper. Yeah, she marks it so that if it was taken off, she would know. So again, that's paranoia. Imagine.
That's extreme.
Because I can do that. I'm gonna go to you once Celia is done because I can see you're fidgeting where you are.
I was going to come in. First of all, just to address what Antonio was saying.
Yeah.
You mentioned about 2 or 3 times my husband. So I'm looking at this and I'm taking this to be our husband, my husband and her father as well. So it's not just my daughter is our daughter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to assume that this man in question is the biological father of this daughter. But to come to the other point, that is extreme paranoia, though.
Yes, yeah.
I've always wanted a girl child. I prayed for it because I never had an elder sister, so I wanted my first child to be a girl child. And when we had my girl is 13 and the other one is 10, that's 3 years difference. And I cared for my daughter just as my wife would do. I changed nappies, I did everything. But it came to a point, nobody told me about it, not because I'm a social worker or something. Came to a point I stopped doing that for my daughter. It became what my wife would then do. There is that level of responsibility as in privacy. But if my wife had told me then when my daughter was only a couple of months old or even 3 years old, I've marked where the Pampers was, she's out of the door.
Well, the dad didn't know. The dad didn't know that this girl was doing, that my friend was doing this. So the dad didn't know.
I understand that there's a bit of naivete there. But if that was me, she's out of the door, man. Why would you do that? But then again, we must be very careful not to stereotype men.
Exactly.
Like I'm going to rightly point out, women do these things, and we don't look at that aspect. So I would question, why are you suspicious of me being with my daughter, and I'm not suspicious of you being with our son?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was in a focus group discussing this, and people goes, "Oh, you guys are quick to say men, but women do actually do this as well. Use their children. So sexual abuse is not just, maybe because it's more common, because it's more reported with male and a younger child, or male and a child, we do have women that do abuse children. So as a parent, the onus of responsibility should be on us to educate our child, or should we leave it to the state? Because we know schools are now being, early sex education is now being introduced from age 4. Do you really think that should be the pathway, or should you be the one that lay the law? Because obviously I talk to Renee and be like, oh, your part, and use the right acronym, the right words.
Yeah.
Your breast, this is your vagina, this is your private, no one is supposed to. So are we supposed to rely on the state, or should we as parents do what we need to do?
I think that parents needs to do what they need to do. I don't think we should rely on the state for that, because I, for one, in as much as I like the fact that, the state would teach at a certain age, the state would teach children about sexual, knowing their body parts and what's appropriate or inappropriate touch. But sometimes I just feel like they do it too early, especially when it comes to sex education, okay?
Yeah.
When it comes to knowing your body parts and where is appropriate for someone else to touch you, I'm fine for them to do it from reception, no problem, or even nursery, where the child can understand. But when it comes to sexual relationships, that's where I have an issue. However, in saying that, I believe that in a household, right, where you have a father and a mom, whether the children are your biological children or not, I think that is something that the husband and the wife should always discuss, yeah? Because if the woman is feeling a certain type of way that, oh God, okay, I have a female child, or even if a man can still abuse his son, do you understand? So it's not just a man abusing the daughter or the mom abusing the son. It could still be same sex as well, So I feel like both parents should always talk about it. And you will say things like, oh, wow, if anybody should be abusing our child, or if we find out anybody's abusing our child, what we're going to do. So those are just the common things that, if, as a mom or as a father, if you're suspecting that the other partner is doing it, I think maybe just discuss it and throw it out there and see what their reaction would be. And for me, that may give you an intuition to say, okay, maybe he's too lax about it, or he's not really saying what you want to hear.
Antonia, I'm going to go to you. What's your take on my question?
Okay, so I personally feel that conversation should happen at home. I quite agree with Celia about sometimes the intensity of what is being, what the school will teach or how they will teach it. So it's good that, the foundation starts at home. Interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I were having this conversation about, I've got an 11-year-old boy, and we've been trying to have those kind of conversations with him, because quite early on, from experiences of having friends of similar age, the things they tell me that at 11, boys are already talking. I know of a young man now that told me he first had sexual intercourse at 11, and that was with an older relative in the house.
Wow.
So when you hear these stories about how young, and mind you, our children go to school and they mix up with children from other backgrounds, from other, family values, and they get exposed to so many things that we don't know about. And as parents, if you don't have that conversation with your child, if they don't learn it from you, you're going to have a big problem. And I'm an advocate for having that conversation, like my husband is spending enough time with my son, in the evenings where they have a conversation. We've got some very good books. There are books out there that you can check that would kind of ease and introduce you into those topics, and you can explore it in your own way as a parent to your child. This is what it is. This is what, having relationship is at this age. This is your body part, like you said, who touches it, who is not allowed, what's privacy, what's good personal hygiene. Those are the things that need to start very early on. And I believe it needs to start from the home and from the parents.
Now, Jude, the state, parents, where do you see?
I think, it's always been there. And my views have been quite balanced anyway. Okay. Yes, the school should do it, because our children spend most part of the day with them. And the home should do it as well. I remember having this conversation with my daughter, and it was just brief. I just said to her, your body belongs to you, doesn't belong to me or your mother or anyone. No one has the right to touch you, not even your teachers, even when they're teaching you about all of these things. So again, I go to work in the morning, I get up early, and I don't see them when they leave for school. And by the time I come back, they're already home. Their mother's the one doing all of the school runs. And by the time I come back, I'm tired, trying to get food, or I'm stressed out from work. And that's it. Before I even say hello, I fall asleep. So you can see where I'm going with this. And time after time, I've realized, because I reflect a lot, that I'm not really involved with their schoolwork or asking them questions about their friends, who they hang out with. These things are done with their mom. So you can tell when, with this whole COVID-19 period, when I'm at home working and I start spending time with my daughter, because I'm thinking in my head, let me really spend time now because I'm home all the time. And you can see where I'll really flip when my wife then turns around to say, what's happening? They become so unusually close. So all of that factors do play into these sort of issues, because we work. Our people spend time, our kids spend more time in school with their teachers. And I can't pretend out here that I'm a Superman. I tell you the truth. I've never touched their homework. The only time my daughter comes to me for homework is when it involves politics, because she knows I like politics and history. That's the only time the mom pushes her to my side. When it comes to mathematics, I hate mathematics, so the mom is good at that. Yeah, you see, I always thought growing up, because I like school, I like education, I like books, I like reading. I thought I would be the type of dad that would be really, really involved. I've got 2 boys. I don't get involved in anything. The wife runs everything because I work and I.
Okay, so
can I just respond to Jude? Yeah, Jude, I appreciate that you have this setup with your family, and I think that's very typical of Black ethnic minority families in the UK, where the dad goes to work, the mom goes to work. We need to create time. The times at the weekend, even if it's half an hour in a week, especially with our boys. I don't want to digress into what's going on with our young Black ethnic boys in our society today. The parents need to have time. It's not just about work. I'm guilty as well. I work full time, but I sometimes consciously, I tell myself, you know what, I need to take time. My husband is he works almost how many hours a day? And I said, you know what, honey, even if it's half an hour a day, half an hour every 2 days spent with Jeremy, you need to have conversations with him, because our children are being sold outside to outsider with no values, and before you know it, you wouldn't even know what they do when they leave your house. They can be as holy as thou in the house, but when they're out there, it's something else.
You brought that up, Antonia. Like, I don't use public transport a lot, but the one few times I get on the bus, it's like a pack behavior. You need to see the way the boys behave, and as Black ethnic boys especially, they're like an endangered species. There needs to be more done from the home, because you find out when there's no sort of moral figure, father figure, it's easy for these children to get swayed in things happening out there. And we've seen numerous instances where 12-year-old boys, 11-year-old boys have died on the streets of London. But that's not the topic we're talking today. But obviously, I just want to support what you said, Antonia. But let's go back to what we're talking about, which is this mom in question. She's done something wrong, right? A child may actually maybe have been abused. So if she had stepped in and had been right, she may have saved this child.
Yeah.
Because from the story I told you earlier, the daughter actually thought, well, I have a crush on my dad. I love my dad. Having sex with my dad is beautiful. That is her dad. And the mom didn't know. She was downstairs working. The one person that's supposed to be there for her failed her. And I'm not talking about the mom, I'm talking about the dad. So, guys, how would this family come back? Because I thought, well, family group conference, family therapy. Do you really think they can actually come back from this?
Just before we start to say this, I know of a story, or I heard of a story where it was the woman had the child. She had a daughter, and I think the daughter was about 14 or so, or 13 at the time, and she had just married. She was married to this other guy who was not the biological father for the child. and that man and this woman's daughter started to have a relationship, right? And then eventually the woman found out, okay? And unfortunately for the woman, the child got pregnant from her husband. Her husband impregnated her daughter, okay? And he went to court and all of that. But unfortunately, nothing was done with the man, because at this point now, the child was over 18, okay? She's pregnant, she's expecting her mom's husband's child, okay? And because the woman knew, she suspected something was happening, that was why she brought it up. So sometimes
I think there's a famous director that married his stepdaughter. If it comes to me, I'll say.
Yeah, in America, yeah.
Yeah, in America.
So sometimes things like this can happen, and the woman or the man can have an intuition that, you know, this child is being abused, and say something and will be right. You're only fine when you're right, okay? You've only done the right thing when you're right. But when you're wrong, I just feel no matter the amount of family group conference or whatever it is you do, it's just going, there's always going to be that thing there that you can't take back. It's almost like you put something out there in the universe and now you're trying to do everything possible to remove it. You can't, because it's already there. It's already mixed with the universe and people have heard it. Okay, so your family might be back together and everybody will be fine, but it's a narrative that's already out there.
So, Antonia, do you share the notion that there's no going back to this family?
To be honest, it might be a very, very difficult one for to come back from. Hence why my emphasis in the beginning that before you carry that such an action, you need to have evidence to back yourself, because ultimately it's your marriage, is, you know, but with God, anything is possible. It's likely they can, if the man is forgiving and he can understand why she's gone to that length. But I think as a woman, the first thing you do before you make such an action or do such a thing, you need to have evidence for what you're acting upon. So,
Jude, it's a total no, right?
No. What I said at first was, in response to your question, was I would flip. That's the initial reaction as a human. Someone is accusing me of having done something, even if it was just common shoplifting from the shop. I would flip. It's a normal reaction. But I can understand this woman's concern, why she had done that. This is her child, although it's the man's child as well. The first point of security for this child is the mother. I don't want to stereotype women. Now we're beginning to understand things because we read books and all. We see the changes in our children. My daughter is 13. I already know she started seeing her period already. I know she uses sanitary pads. I've gone to the shops to buy for her and her mom. I'm used to this side of it because I was brought up by a single mother, and she taught her everything, you know. But the point I'm trying to make is the mother will already know, if we go by what Antonia is saying, the investigative process, she would already know whether there are changes. This just didn't happen for over a period of a week, and she started noticing, no, she must have known, come on, my daughter has changed. What's happening? She's reacting somehow when I touch or when I trying to get a hug. That's where all of this, that's where the mom starts picking it up. Yeah. To digress a bit, yesterday my wife said to me, we were in bed around midnight, and my 5-year-old boy, and my wife was saying, talk to Papa, because that's what they call me. Tell Papa what you told me earlier. So I said, what? And he kept saying, no, it's nothing. I said, what was that? And my wife said, he's asking me a question, why his PP goes strong and doesn't go back plastic? So he's talking about this. It's a 5-year-old boy. And I was like, and I said, come on, let's talk about it. Ask me to go. He said, no, there's nothing. I never said that. And he went, I understand this because I'm a boy. I was a boy before, so I knew all these things. And I know it does happen from when they were about 3 or 4 years. You don't understand why. So that's a conversation I'm looking forward to have with my child.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So I expect this woman in particular would have noticed those little changes. And the approach she took is valid. So I've got no problem with that approach that she took. The only thing for me was, I said, I would flip if I was accused.
Which is a natural reaction.
Or it's there's no right or wrong. It is a valid approach because, first of all, the priority is the safety of her daughter. That would damage her forever if it did happen.
Or you know what? Maybe the man could also see it from the point of view that the woman can really look after the child, that God forbid if anything was to happen and he wasn't there, the woman will be very protective of the child because she will know what to look out for. And maybe another thing the woman could have done, instead of just asking the man directly, maybe she could have said to him, oh, have you noticed any changes in our daughter lately? Do you understand? So maybe she could go from that angle and see what the man's reaction would be.
That's Hollywood stuff. That's not real life.
Well,
if I was parenting my wife, I would approach her the way the woman did. I don't think there's a gentle way to do it. I would approach her seriously and say, hey, what are you doing with our son? It's the normal human thing to do. This is not Nollywood or Hollywood, you see. But like I said, like for every human, even if I was doing it, I would flip at that question. That's the first thing.
So I think we'll leave it at that. It's unfortunate. I'm not sure if this would ever get to the mom. Your concerns may be valid. Your actions may be valid. At the same time, you have a family, a husband, and a daughter to reach out to. And we hope in the Court of Trashins that there should be some resolution to this, and you guys can come back stronger as a family, and your child will trust you that no matter what the situation is, you would always look out for her. Mm-hmm. And for the husband in question, I hope by some miracle, you can come around and probably sit down with her and look at whether there are underlying issues. Like Jude said at the beginning, this woman might actually be a victim of abuse herself, and she might not have intensive therapy to take her from second guessing everybody around her, because that could be another issue. So we'll leave it at that. I really thank Antonia and Jude taking time out of a very dull day in London today. It's raining actually, to come in, Skyping as usual. Thank God for technology. And Celia, good to see you again.
Yeah, same here.
To our fans and subscribers, like I said, every Saturday we all come in when this goes live, and you get to talk to myself and Celia and Antonia, and Jude will be joining in. At least to have, if you have got questions, you can ask us. And like Antonia is going to drop the names of the books that she was talking about, so that our fans and subscribers can actually get this for their children. And for those that actually work like we all do, let's create time for our children. The devil is not usually out there. Sometimes it's within your home. So know the people that you allow into your home, know the people that you allow care for your children. And most importantly, that conversation, have it with your children. Let them know the importance of their privacy and not letting anyone to touch them. So until next week, it's been my pleasure as always. And Celia, Jude,
thank you guys. Thank you
guys for tuning in.
We'll see you all next week. Bye.